15 hip-hop comebacks that embarrassed everyone who counted them out.
Like it's hard. When the pigs try to get at you, park it like it's hard. Park it like it's hard.
You know some of these names already, but you don't know the full story. What it actually took to get back. What happened behind the scenes.
Come to your town, don't crowd me.
What the people who wrote them off had to say when it was over.
Told you sell drugs. No, hold it that, so hopefully you won't have to go through that.
Some of these artists were declared finished. Some of them were literally shot and left for dead. Some of them had diseases eating their bodies alive. And every single one came back and proved this culture doesn't forget who's real. Starting at number 15. Number 15, Snoop Dogg. I can exercise you. This could be your phys ed. Post-Death Row, Reinvention / Drop It Like It's Hot, 2004. Here's one that doesn't get enough respect, Snoop Dogg. And if you've been sleeping on this comeback story, I need you to hear the full version.
So don't change the diesel, turn it up a little. I got a living room full of fine.
When Doggy Style dropped in 1993, it was untouchable. 4 times platinum in its first week. Death Row Records, Dre at the controls. Snoop was the voice of West Coast royalty, but then Death Row fell apart.
Park it like it's hard. Park it like it's hard. Park it like it's hard.
Tupac was gone. The relationship with Suge Knight had turned toxic. Snoop walked away in 1996 and released The Dogfather, and the consensus from the culture was swift, disappointing, not bad, but not what we needed, not what Doggy Style had promised. Then came a few years drifting between labels, No Limit Records, Priority, projects that felt more like obligations than statements. And by the early 2000s, people were having an honest conversation. Had Snoop peaked? Was Doggy Style the ceiling, not the foundation? Then Pharrell Williams walked in, Drop It Like It's Hot, landed in 2004 on the album R&G, The Masterpiece. And when that record hit the Billboard Hot 100 and climbed straight to number 1, the industry didn't know what to do with it because Snoop hadn't chased a trend. He hadn't changed his voice to fit the moment.
Get an attitude. Pop it like it's hot. Pop it like it's hot.
He found the right collaborator, got out of his own way, and let that easy drawl, the one that sounds like he's barely trying and always lands perfect, carry him right back to the top. The album debuted at number 1. A man everyone said had already given us his best work walked back in the room and reminded everybody, legacy doesn't expire when the label says it does.
Like it's hard. When the pigs try to get at you, park it like it's hard. Park it like it's hard.
You earn it again on your own terms. If you were in a car when Drop It Like It's Hot came through the speakers and you reached for the volume without thinking about it, you already know exactly what that comeback felt like. That's the kind of music that doesn't ask for permission. Number 14, Rakim. The 18th Letter, 1997. And here's what you need to understand about this one, because context is everything. From 1986 to 1992, Eric B. and Rakim were operating on a level nobody could touch. The vocabulary, the flow, the way he constructed metaphors that felt like architecture instead of rhymes. When Rakim spoke, MCs took notes. He didn't just influence the game, he set the grammar for it. And then silence. 5 years with no solo record, no album, just this legend-sized hole in hip-hop where Rakim used to stand. And in those 5 years, the culture moved fast. Biggie was reigning. Nas had just dropped Illmatic. Jay-Z was building his empire brick by brick. A whole new generation of MCs had arrived, claiming the throne. Some of them were doing it well. And people genuinely started asking whether Rakim could compete in this new world, whether those years away had dulled something that once felt unstoppable. Then November 1997, the 18th letter solo debut on Universal Records. The title, R, is the 18th letter of the alphabet. Rakim named the album after himself, not out of arrogance, but out of a confidence that only comes from a man who never stopped knowing who he was. The album debuted at number 4 on the Billboard 200, and what embarrassed people wasn't just that Rakim still had skill. What stunned them was that after 5 years away, while younger MCs had been setting the pace, rewriting the rules, this man came back and was still ahead of the conversation. Still technical, still deliberate in construction, still moving in a lane nobody else could find, let alone occupy. The MCs who spent those 5 years trying to claim his crown, they heard that album and went quiet, because the throne doesn't transfer just because the king steps out of the room for a minute. If you've ever come back to something after years away and had to prove you still had it, you understand what Rakim walked into in 1997, and you understand what it meant when he walked out the other side with people nodding their heads again. Real talk. Only 9% of you watching this are actually subscribed. That hurts a little, not gonna lie. We spend hours digging through archives, fact-checking every detail, bringing these stories back to life because this music deserves to be remembered. And you're here because you care about that too. So if these videos mean something to you, if you've ever said, damn, I didn't know that, or felt something while watching, just hit subscribe. It's free, takes 2 seconds, and it tells YouTube to show this to more people who love this music like we do. Let's build this together. All right, back to the story. Number 13, DMX. It's dark and hell is hot. Flesh of my flesh, blood of my blood. 1998. Earl Simmons from Yonkers, New York. And I need you to really sit with what 1998 looked like, because most people talk about this debut like it was expected, like the industry had cleared a lane for him. They had not. DMX had been grinding for years, guest appearances, underground battle rep, a deal with Rough House Records in 1992 that went absolutely nowhere. He'd been in and out of jail, living the exact life he would eventually rap about. By 1997, people in the industry knew his name, but nobody was treating Earl Simmons like a star. Nobody cleared the lane for this man. He kicked the door down himself. May 12th, 1998. It's Dark and Hell is Hot drops on Def Jam. First week, 251,000 copies. Number 1. When that album arrived, hip-hop was living in Puff Daddy's world. Shiny suits, orchestra samples, celebratory excess, and DMX showed up in that climate, barking, praying, screaming, and spitting like a man possessed. He was the antidote nobody ordered. The album didn't aim for radio. Radio came to the album, and Rough Riders anthem rang out of every car stereo in New York City and beyond. Then, and this is the part that still gets me, just 7 months later, December 22nd, 1998, Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood drops. First week, 670,000 copies. Number 1 again. The industry knew it was coming, and they still couldn't stop it. DMX became the first living rapper to drop 2 number 1 albums in the same calendar year. Let that land for a second. He didn't just come back from nowhere. He came back from nowhere twice in the same 12 months. And the second time was bigger than the first. He embarrassed everybody who thought Puff Daddy's era was unchallenged. He embarrassed the system that took years to even recognize him as a real contender.
ready for the world, or at least I thought I was bagging when I caught a buzz. I think
If you were walking school hallways in 1998 and Rough Riders' anthem started echoing from somewhere down the hall, you remember what happened to the energy in that building. You don't forget a sound that hits like that.
I being slick, used to get high just to get by, used to have to ball.
Number 12, Ice Cube. America's Most Wanted, 1990. And I need you to understand the stakes here because people forget how risky this move was. NWA in 1990 wasn't just a rap group. Straight Outta Compton had changed everything. It had the FBI writing letters to their label, suburban kids hiding the tape from their parents, and the entire country suddenly paying attention to Compton.
It's a full-time jack move. Chili chill, yo, homie, make the track move. And I jack.
And Ice Cube was their pen, the man writing most of their most important rhymes. Then he left over money, specifically the $75,000 that manager Jerry Heller owed him and never paid. And the verdict from the industry was immediate. Cube made a mistake. You don't leave the biggest crew in hip-hop while they're still burning and expect to survive. That's how the business works. Here's what actually happened. Cube got on a plane to New York. Dr. Dre, who he'd wanted to produce the album, was blocked by label politics. Eazy-E not wanting Dre to work for his former group member. So instead, Cube linked with Public Enemy's production team, the Bomb Squad, East Coast production, West Coast rage, 6 notebooks full of rhymes that had been simmering since the day he saw how that money wasn't adding up. America's Most Wanted released May 16, 1990 on Priority Records. No major label, no radio support, no group to promote alongside him. The album still went platinum. And not just commercially, critically, it was immediately recognized as something rare. It took the brutality of gangsta rap and gave it the political weight of a Public Enemy record. 2 worlds that weren't supposed to collide, and they collided perfectly. While he was making it, NWA was already firing shots on 100 Miles and Running. Cube didn't even dignify it at first. He just let the music answer. The Washington Post wrote that with this album, Ice Cube proved he was NWA's crucial element. They went from proving each other right to proving each other wrong. And Cube proved it first. If you've ever had to walk away from something people said you needed, then come back and show them you were the talent the whole time. You know exactly what this vindication felt like. Number 11, 50 Cent. Get Rich or Die Trying, 2003. If you think you know this story, give me a second, because the part that gets buried under the legend is the part that matters most. May 24th, 2000. Queens, New York. Curtis Jackson gets shot 9 times in front of his grandmother's house. He's 24 years old. His debut album, Power of the Dollar for Columbia Records, was weeks away from release. You know what Columbia Records did? Dropped him, album shelved, career over by their calculation. One of the biggest labels in the world looked at a man who survived 9 gunshots and decided he wasn't worth the risk. But here's what they didn't calculate. What lying on that couch recovering from those wounds did to his writing. What listening to the radio for months while healing taught him about the gap between what was being played and what the streets actually felt. He rebuilt his name through mixtapes, independently on the corners, track by track. And when Eminem heard one of those tapes in 2002, he didn't just offer him a deal, he co-signed him to one of the most powerful partnerships in rap history. February 6, 2003, Get Rich or Die Trying dropped 872,000 copies in its first week.
My money on my mind, got a meal out the deal, and I'm still in the grind. Now shorty says
Number 1 on the Billboard 200, best-selling album of all of 2003. Columbia Records had 9 chances to kill that story, 1 for each bullet. He used all of them as fuel instead. And here's what I want you to think about.
full of bug, mama, I got what you need. You need to feel the buzz. I'm in the habit sex.
Every label that passed on him after the shooting, every industry insider who said he was damaged goods, they had to watch him become the best-selling artist of 2003 and sit with that. That's a different kind of embarrassment. That's the kind that doesn't go away.
Look, homie, ain't nothing changed. Roll down, G's up. I see exhibit in the cutting, man.
If you've ever been dismissed by someone who had power over your future and then had to watch them realize exactly what they gave up, you know that quiet vindication never fully stops feeling good.
Brought me to go, that brought me all my fancy things, my crib.
Number 10, Eminem. Recovery, 2010. This one is personal if you actually love this man's music, because by 2009 something felt off, and if you were paying attention, you felt it too. Relapse dropped in 2009. And yes, it sold. Yes, it hit number 1, but the fans knew. M himself knew. The accents felt forced. The content felt disconnected from the man who had been speaking to real emotion for a decade. His own manager said on record that he missed a lot of people with that record. For the best-selling artist of the entire 2000s, that kind of creative disconnect was its own crisis. Critics who had championed him started writing careful, qualified reviews. Some people started using the past tense when they talked about his relevance. Then on April 13th, 2010, he tweeted 2 words, "No relapse too," and he scrapped everything. All of those recorded sessions. He started from scratch with a clarity that only comes from hitting a wall and deciding to rebuild from the floor up. Recovery dropped June 18th, 2010. First week, 741,000 copies. Number 1. But here's the embarrassment factor for everyone who had already drafted the career obituary. Recovery became the best-selling album worldwide in 2010. Not just hip-hop, not just rap, every genre, every country, every format on the planet. The best-selling album anywhere on earth that year was an Eminem comeback record. Not Afraid hit number 1. Love the Way You Lie with Rihanna hit number 1. On the album, he literally rapped that Relapse was openly acknowledging The Miz. And then delivered the receipts immediately after. That takes a specific kind of confidence. The confidence of a man who knows that admission isn't weakness when you can back it up with what comes next. The people who wrote the post-relapse think pieces about his decline, they recovered from embarrassment a lot more quietly than that album recovered from criticism. Number 9, Lil Wayne. The Carter 3, 2008. Specifically the moment the Carter 3 dropped on June 10th, 2008, because people forget how loud the skeptics were in the years leading up to this. Wayne had been calling himself the best rapper alive for years. On record, in interviews, on every feature he touched, and the criticism was real. Some people felt the mixtape showed flashes of brilliance, but also inconsistency, that the claim was bigger than the proof. The Carter 2 was critically praised, but didn't make the cultural impact the self-declaration demanded. People were watching, and some people were waiting for him to fall short again so they could close the chapter. June 10th, 2008, the Carter 3 arrives. first week over 1 million copies. The first rap album to sell 1 million copies in its opening week since 50 Cent's The Massacre back in 2005. And understand, this happened at a time when music sales industry-wide were collapsing. The overall best-selling album of 2006 hadn't even crossed 800,000 in its debut week. Wayne crossed 1 million in 7 days in 2008. That's not a number, that's a statement. And the content backed up every single claim he had ever made. A Milli, Lollipop at #1, Mr. Carter with Jay-Z, which many read as a passing of the torch. The Grammy for Best Rap Album followed. The album became 2008's best-selling record overall across every genre. Here's what gets me about this one. The claim was so large, so repeated, so vulnerable to being disproven, that when he proved it, the embarrassment for the skeptics wasn't quiet. It was public. Everyone who had been on record dismissing the best rapper alive declaration had to reckon with those words while the Carter 3 played in the background. Some of y'all were his loudest defenders before this drop, and some of y'all switched up real quick once those numbers came in. You know which side you were on. Drop it in the comments. Number 8, Dr. Dre. 2001, 1999. The story starts not in 1999, but in 1996, when Death Row Records was a powder keg with the fuse already burning. Tupac was gone. Suge Knight's methods had gotten darker, and Dre, the man who engineered G-Funk, who built Death Row's entire sonic identity, who made The Chronic one of the most influential records in rap history, walked away from all of it. Started Aftermath Entertainment from scratch, and then made what he's been honest about as a significant misstep. The 1996 Aftermath compilation didn't deliver. Critics and fans felt it was a creative step backward. People started whispering that Dre had lost his touch. That without the Death Row infrastructure, without the right voices around him, he couldn't replicate the alchemy. The industry, which is always looking for a reason to declare a legend finished, started saying maybe Dre's moment had passed. Then November 16th, 1999. 2001 arrives. Here's a detail that almost buried it before it released. Dre had originally planned to call it Chronic 2000. Suge Knight caught wind of the title through the trademark process and threatened to release a competing compilation with the same name just to sabotage the rollout. Jimmy Levine stepped in. They renamed it 2001. The album hit stores, and within the first listen, it was clear Dre hadn't lost anything. He'd been sharpening it in silence. Still Dre open, with Dre addressing doubters directly. And when the cops came to me and Dre stood next to a burnt down house with a can full of gas and a hand. The album that followed was a 6 times platinum answer. Snoop came back. A relatively unknown Marshall Mathers showed up in demolished features. Corrupt, Nate Dogg, Exhibit all assembled. The 2001 sound became inescapable, and Aftermath's credibility, rebuilt on the back of this comeback, is the direct reason Kendrick Lamar ever landed on that label. The people who said Dre was finished in 1997, 2001 made them forget they'd ever said it, because embarrassment is most powerful when it's permanent. Number 7, Jay-Z. The Blueprint, 2001, September 11th, 2001. And I know that date lands differently. The most tragic day in modern American history. The day 2 towers fell and everything went quiet. And also, somehow, the day Jay-Z released one of the greatest hip-hop albums ever made. But here's what the conversation looked like the week before The Blueprint dropped. Jay-Z was one of the most targeted MCs in the game. Nas was loading the cannon. Prodigy from Mobb Deep was coming. Jadakiss, Fat Joe. Jay had enemies on multiple fronts, all calling his credibility into question. And simultaneously, he was awaiting 2 criminal trials, one for gun possession, one for assault. Not just under creative pressure, under legal pressure. One bad verdict away from a prison sentence. What does he do? He locks himself in with a young producer from Chicago named Kanye West, who barely anybody had heard of yet, and builds an album sampling vintage soul records while hip-hop was living in the digital keyboard era.
H to the Izzo, V to the Izzy. What else can I say about do?
It shouldn't have worked. That was the wrong direction by every conventional measure in 2001. The Blueprint dropped September 11th. The country shut down. Most businesses closed. Most media went silent. The album still sold 427,000 copies in its first week. Debuted at #1, it eventually went triple platinum, launched Kanye West's entire production legacy, and was selected by the Library of Congress for preservation as culturally and historically significant. The first album from the 21st century to receive that honor.
I was raised in the projects, roaches and rats. Smokers out back.
It also contains Takeover, the disc that lit the Jay Nas powder keg and triggered Ether 2 months later on Jay-Z's birthday. The Blueprint started a chess match neither man could walk away from.
Used to dribble down in VA, was hurting them in the home of the Turbans. Got it dirt cheap for them.
And whether you think Jay won that battle or Nas did, one thing is undeniable. Jay-Z dropped a masterpiece while everyone around him was trying to take him down. That's not just a comeback, that's a statement about who you are when the pressure is at its absolute maximum.
In the status quo up, I'm overcharging for what they did to the Cold Crush. Payers like
Number 6, Missy Elliott. Graves' Disease / Super Bowl 49. Halftime 2015. This one isn't about an album. It's about a single moment that reminded an entire generation what they had been missing. Between 1997 and 2005, Missy Elliott was untouchable. 6 studio albums, production credits on some of the most innovative records of her era, one of the most distinctive visual artists in music video history. The woman who helped build the sonic bridge between hip-hop and R&B in ways that influenced everyone who came after her. Then, 2008, Graves' disease, an autoimmune condition that attacked her thyroid and eventually her motor skills. Her hands trembled so badly at one point, she nearly crashed her car because she couldn't hold the brake pedal down. She couldn't even hold a pen. She kept it private for 3 years before telling People magazine in 2011. She stepped away. The world moved on, the way the world does. Young fans grew up not knowing her name. Artists who had learned from her catalog were making careers without anyone crediting the foundation. Then February 1st, 2015, Super Bowl 49, Katy Perry is headlining the halftime show. And somewhere in the middle of it, Get Your Freak On starts playing through those stadium speakers. Missy Elliott stepped onto that stage and delivered a 3-song medley in front of 118.5 million viewers, and the internet broke. Streams jumped 676% overnight. Teenagers who had never heard her music were searching her name in real time during the broadcast. Here's the detail that didn't come out until later. She had been in the hospital the night before the Super Bowl. Nobody knew. She got to the venue, heard those opening notes, and stepped out anyway. Some of y'all just got chills remembering watching that performance, because that moment didn't just represent a comeback for Missy Elliott. It represented every person who had to come back from something their body did to them without their permission and refused to let it be the last chapter. Number 5, Pusha T. The Story of Adidon, 2018. This one is about 5 minutes and 40 seconds of audio that permanently shifted the power dynamics of an entire era of hip-hop.
One stop like a Walmart. We got the tennis balls for the
May 25th, 2018, Pusha T releases Daytona, a short, sharp, Kanye-produced masterpiece. The last track, Infrared, contains what sounds like references to Drake and ghostwriting.
You know. One stop like a Walmart. We got the tennis balls for
Drake, who had been operating as one of the most commercially untouchable artists on the planet, responds that same day with a diss called Duppy Freestyle, confident, dismissive. The general read was that Drake had the upper hand. He had the leverage, the numbers, the cultural moment.
If you know, you know.
Pusha was smaller in terms of profile. Most people expected Push to absorb the hit and move on. 4 days later, May 29, 2018. The Story of Adidon drops on SoundCloud, and within hours, the rap world could not stop talking.
If you know, you know. When we all clicking like Golden State.
Pusha had done something that nobody in Drake's orbit had managed in years of trying. He found genuinely personal information and delivered it with surgical precision. He revealed publicly that Drake had a secret son named Adonis with a woman Drake had not publicly acknowledged.
Add up on the blow, that was 10 years ago. If you know, you know.
He addressed Drake's parents by name. He questioned Drake's identity, his heritage, his credibility as a father. He rapped over Jay-Z's own Story of OJ instrumental.
Layers and ball shorts, coaching from the side of the ball court. If you know, you know.
A beat No ID himself said he told Pusha not to use, and used it anyway. Drake did not respond. Not with a track, not with a freestyle, not with anything. 4 days, that's all it took. After years of Drake winning every public beef by either dismissing rivals with humor or burying them with popularity, Pusha T made him go completely silent. Drake eventually confirmed his son Adonis existed on his own album months later, and in 2019 he conceded that he had lost the feud.
Child rebel soldier, you ain't orphan enough. A rapper turned
the most commercially dominant rapper of his generation, embarrassed by 5 minutes and 40 seconds from a man the industry considered smaller than him.
and you and your team are the motorcade. You know, you know. Being great.
That part still doesn't fully sit right with me, because it shows what happens when someone with real information and no fear of consequences decides to use both.
Them trapdoors supposed to be awkward. If you know, you know.
Number 4, Kendrick Lamar.
I'm finna flow on him. Say Drake, I hear you like I'm young. You better not ever go to Cell Block.
Not Like Us, 2024. This one is still fresh, still being debated, still playing on the radio as we speak, but it belongs on this list because nothing else in 2024 matched the scale of this embarrassment for the other side. Understand the context. Drake, by early 2024, was the most commercially dominant rapper of his generation. More Hot 100 entries than any artist in history. A cultural machine that had survived every beef, every criticism.
When you need a few dollars, no, you're not a colleague, you a fucking colonizer.
And Kendrick Lamar, who was respected as a lyricist but had never had the commercial pull Drake did, stepped onto a Future and Metro Boomin collaborative album in March 2024 and decided there was no big three, just Big Me.
I'ma do my stuff. Why you trolling like a bitch? Ain't you tired? Trying to strike a chord.
The fuse was lit. What followed was one of the most compressed, intense rap battles in the history of the genre. Diss after diss, sometimes hours apart. And on May 4th, 2024, Kendrick dropped Not Like Us. A week later, it debuted at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, Kendrick's 4th career #1 single. He performed it 6 times in a row at his Juneteenth pop-out show in Los Angeles.
maybe help you get your lingo up. What 20?
It played at the 2025 Super Bowl halftime show, Kendrick headlining, Drake's name echoing through that stadium in a way Drake never wanted. By year end, Kendrick had swept the BET Hip Hop Awards, winning 8 out of 11 nominations, including Lyricist of the Year and Hip Hop Artist of the Year.
Bird niggas and bird bitches go. The audience not dumb. Shape the stories how you.
Drake wasn't nominated in the categories that mattered, and in a moment that crystallized the whole thing, Drake sued over the song, claiming defamation. The federal judge dismissed the case. You know what's crazy about this one? Kendrick was considered the artistic choice before this, respected but not dominant. When the dust settled, he had used a beef to become more commercially powerful than he'd ever been, while simultaneously making the most commercially powerful rapper in the game look like he didn't know how to fight.
They tell me Chubb's the only one that get your hand-me-downs and party at the party playing.
If you've ever been the underdog in a situation you weren't supposed to win and you won anyway and bigger than expected, you know exactly what 2024 felt like for Compton.
Since 2009, I had this bitch jumping. You niggas will get a wedgie, be flipped over your boxes.
Number 3, Nas.
Cause y'all all soft and I'm the black hearse that came to haul y'all in.
Ether, Stillmatic, 2001. To fully understand this comeback, you need to understand how far down he had fallen before it. Illmatic in 1994 was, and still is, considered by many to be the greatest debut album in hip-hop history. 5 perfecto tracks, DJ Premier, Pete Rock, Q-Tip, Large Professor.
Automatic leg, quick up, get a keep it a gangster with ya.
A 27-year-old from Queensbridge who put his borough on the map and set a standard that would haunt him for the rest of his career. Because what followed Illmatic was a decade of inconsistency that drove the culture crazy. I Am and Nostradamus in 1999 were widely panned. People didn't just say Nas had declined, they said it was permanent, that the kid who wrote Illmatic at 17 had given us his masterpiece and couldn't get back there. Then, at Hot 97 Summer Jam 2001, Jay-Z, who had been building toward this confrontation for years, stepped on stage and performed what would become Takeover.
Shoulder pads of paddle, but the QB don't stand for no quarterback.
Jay methodically dismantled Nas's career catalog, questioned his street credentials, and ended with 8 words. Ask Nas, he don't want it with Hobbs. To many people in that crowd, Nas's career was over. Then December 18th, 2001, Stillmatic arrives. Track 2, Ether, produced by Ron Browse, a relatively unknown producer whose beat Jay-Z's own A&R had turned down.
Look at my tennis shoes, the ice that. Who am I? The back twister, lingerie ripper.
And for 4 minutes, Nas went through Jay-Z's entire identity, his career, his posturing, his influences, his label, his family, like a man who had been holding a fire for years and had finally found the right container to pour it in.
Yo, I'm the N, the A to the S-I-R.
Hot 97 ran a call-in poll. 58% said Nas won. 42% said Jay. Jay responded with super ugly, and then his own mother called the radio station and told him to apologize.
So you tried to front, hope ya. You ain't real, hope ya.
Stillmatic debuted at number 8 on the Billboard 200. It sold over 2 million copies in the United States. It won Nas-backed critics who had called him finished. It launched the Godson era. And it turned ether into a verb. To ether someone now means to completely dismantle them on a diss record. That's not an entry in the dictionary yet, but it should be. From career over to winning hip-hop's greatest battle and coining a word in the process. If you've ever been written off by someone you respect and then had to find out what you're actually made of when your back is against the wall, you know what this comeback meant. Number 2, LL Cool J. Mama Said Knock You Out, 1990. The reason this is number 2 and not just an honorable mention is because this is the album that defined what a hip-hop comeback even is. Before anyone else on this list came back from anything, LL Cool J wrote the playbook. By 1989, James Todd Smith had a problem. Walking with a Panther was out, and while it sold, the culture had moved on without him. Public Enemy and Boogie Down Productions were making hip-hop political. NWA was making it gritty and dangerous. And LL was posing with champagne bottles and models on his album cover while the world was screaming about racism, police brutality, and survival.
Don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years. I'm rocking my
The backlash was immediate. Critics called him out of touch. Peers dismissed him. The narrative was building. LL Cool J had sold out. LL Cool J had fallen off.
and I'm just getting warm. Just like Muhammad Ali, they called him cat.
He took every negative word, every article, every peer who had dismissed him back to his grandmother's house in Queens. And his grandmother, seeing him frustrated and low, told him, "Go out there and knock them out." Those 5 words became the title of an album that changed his career and the culture.
Past the old goal, I'm gonna knock you out.
He linked with Marley Marl, who had previously been on the opposing side of a rap beef with him. That history got set aside, and what they built together in Marley's House of Hits studio in 1990 was the most focused, hungry, deliberately aggressive album LL Cool J had ever made.
Competition's paying the price. I'm gonna knock you out.
He took shots at Kool Moe Dee. He wrote Illegal Search about police harassment. He wrote Around the Way Girl, which is the direct antidote to everything wrong about Panther. And then he wrote the title track, Don't Call It a Comeback, I've Been Here for Years. September 14th, 1990, Mama Said Knock You Out drops. It goes double platinum. It wins a Grammy. And that opening line, 8 words, became the most quoted response in the history of hip-hop comebacks. Every artist on this list, whether they've admitted it or not, has heard those 8 words echo in their head during their own version of this moment. Here's what's crazy about this story. The album title wasn't from LL. It was from his grandmother, a woman who had nothing to do with the industry, who just saw her grandson hurting and told him what to do about it. And he went and did exactly that. That's what a real comeback sounds like. And it came from someone who had to be reminded by the woman who raised him. Number 1, Tupac. All Eyes on Me, 1996. Before I say anything else, I just need to acknowledge that this isn't just a music story. This is the most human story on this list. November 30th, 1994. Quad Recording Studios, Times Square, New York. Tupac Shakur is shot 5 times in the lobby while there to record a verse. He was robbed. He survived. And in the chaos that followed, being rushed to the hospital, being arraigned for an unrelated sexual assault case while recovering from gunshot wounds, he came to a belief that would consume him, that people he trusted had known the attack was coming, that it wasn't random. He pointed at Bad Boy Records. He pointed at Biggie, and he carried that belief into an 8-month prison sentence at Clinton Correctional Facility in Dannemora, New York. That's the setup. Now here's the comeback. October 12th, 1995. Suge Knight of Death Row. Records posted Tupac's $1.4 million bail in exchange for a 3-album deal. The terms were punishing. Pac later told a friend, "I know I'm selling my soul to the devil." But he also walked out of that jail cell with something no label deal could manufacture: a 1.5 years of compressed fury, loyalty betrayal, incarceration, and survival that needed to come out immediately.
Then I flip the channel. I'm checking out my...
He went straight from the facility to the studio, literally from the car to Can-Am Recorders in Los Angeles. Within 45 minutes of arriving, he had laid down the first verse of Ambitions as a Rider, a war anthem that opened with invoking Mike Tyson.
I make a promise if you go with me. Just let me know I had you hollering my name out before I leave.
He recorded 2 classic songs his first night as a free man, then 2 more the next day, then 2 more after that. The sessions were relentless, sometimes 3 or 4 songs a day. Engineers falling asleep at the boards, Pac bouncing between 2 studio rooms to maximize output.
When I started to snap, slow your load, I'm straight in control.
February 13th, 1996, All Eyes on Me is released, rap's first mainstream double album, debuted at #1. California Love was already a #1 hit. It has since been certified diamond, over 10 million copies sold in the United States alone.
You know what I'm saying? And then, you know what I'm saying, what make that even more fucked up?
A man who had been shot in prison, stripped of his freedom, and left to wonder who he could trust, came back and dropped the first hip-hop double album, the first diamond-certified rap record of its era, and one of the most commercially and culturally dominant releases in the history of the genre.
Can I tell her I'm a player? And I don't even care. Creep though, weed smokes in the air.
In the time it takes most artists to finish a standard studio album, he recorded his entire legacy. 7 months later, he was gone. And that's the part that makes this #1. Not just the numbers, not just the sales, not just the history. It's the knowledge that this album existed in a window of time that nobody knew was closing. That a man recording 3 songs a day, recording like he knew the clock was running, accidentally gave us the fullest expression of everything he was in the time he had left. All Eyes on Me didn't just embarrass everyone who thought prison had broken him. It embarrassed the entire concept of permanence. It said, what I do in this limited window cannot be taken from me once I've done it. That's the most important comeback on this list, and it'll never stop being true.
Every other city we go, in every video explain to a nigga why I see the same shit.